All right, welcome back to the channel. I'm Dr. Natty. Today we're going to talk about why ACL injuries happen, and most importantly, what can you do as parent, coaches, athlete to prevent you and someone you know from actually having an ACL injury. So let's get right into it. Okay, first we got to understand what an ACL actually does. So if you look at the knee model, I'm going to peel it back. If you see that little ligament right there, that is your ACL. It's constantly under stress if you are cutting, pivoting, running, right? In any athletic situation. So the ACL helps stabilize your knee. So every time the knee bends, you can see the ACL actually gets stressed. Usually what happens is that as you do more and more of this, you can see the amount of tension you have on that ACL. Now, if you plan, you pivot, and you land the wrong way, what that does, it can put the ACL at stress and also rotate, and that's when you feel that pop. And that's when you know you have torn your ACL, right? You can look at someone like Odell Beckham Jr. when he tore his ACL. You can see that by the way he planned it, his knee kind of went inward, and then that puts so much stress in the ACL, and that is actually pop and tear by itself. Now, what we're gonna go over is factors that you can do to prevent that from happening. Okay, let's talk about the risk factor associated with ACL tear. So number one we're looking at is coordination. So what that means is that when you're running, when you're landing, when you're jumping, chances are you might be landing and your knees are going inward. That's actually not much of a weakness, it's more of a coordination issue. It's like you don't just have an awareness of what's going on, of how your knee is in, space and awareness, right? So the biggest thing is that if you're landing and your knees are going in like this, as you're trying to produce force to push off, that's when you create that rotation force in the knee, and that's when the ACL just pop and tear. So that's number one. Number two is muscle imbalance. So that means if you are quad dominant, you have really, really strong quads. What that means is that you're gonna put a lot of anterior force right in front of the knee, which means you're putting more stress in the ACL. What you want is actually, you wanna have proper muscle balance where your quads and your hamstring and your glutes are actually aligned. So typically we want 2-to-1 strength, right? 2-to-1 quads to hamstring. The hamstring, what's great about that is actually uses to help ACL. It's essentially used as a brake. So every time you slow down, you're landing, you want to engage your glute and your hamstring to take the pressure away from the knee and the ACL itself. So those are the two factors. And then the last one, most importantly, is burned out or fatigue. If you have a long tournament and you play nonstop and you don't have proper recovery, your body's gonna feel fatigue, it's gonna burn out, and therefore you're gonna start moving awkwardly. Like the analogy I always say is like, you're moving like you're a drunk baby or a baby deer because your knees are going in and you're wobbly, right? So those are the three things that you guys need to understand of why ACL tear happens. Okay, so now that you know what an ACL does, the factor that are associated with ACL injury, now we're gonna talk about the most important thing, how to avoid them. So the first thing first, it's all about proper jumping and landing mechanics, right? So if you look at anyone's jump, especially in soccer or in basketball, if you see that they're about to jump and their knees are caving in, you already know you're putting a lot of stress on that ACL. So when people jump, you wanna make sure they are jumping with the knees at neutral here, right? When they're pushing off, and when they're landing at the same position that they're jumping in, right? If you're jumping in here, you're most likely gonna land here, right? So we're gonna jump, you wanna make sure you jump here, and then you land here, right? And that goes to show for both double leg or single leg, right? For the single leg, it's the exact same thing. If I ask someone to say, hey, show me how to do a single leg squat, and they show me this, I already know they're gonna have a hard time jumping and landing on single leg, right? So this is something that you can do as parents, as coaches, as an athlete yourself, as you're watching this video, to assess yourself. Go in the front of the mirror and then see if you're actually doing that, right? So again, single leg jump, same thing. You wanna load here where you load your hips and the knee's not going in, and then when you jump, you're landing the same way, right? So you can start incorporating that as part of your warm-up and do this on your day offs or anytime you have time, because this is gonna teach your brain to understand what is the correct movement pattern when it comes to jumping and landing, okay? So next thing we wanna address is strengthening, right? We talked about muscle imbalance before. Most people are very quad dominant, so they're really heavy over here. So you wanna spend more time strengthening your hamstring back here and your glutes over here, right? So some of the best exercise you can do for your hamstring would be RDLs or single leg RDLs, right? So the RDLs, you can just grab weight. We can superimpose the video here where you can just grab the weight, just come in here. So it's called Romanian deadlifts. Notice when I do this, I am not squatting because that's more quads. I am more hinging. That's more hamstring and more glutes. So you can do this with weight, or you can do it with single leg, because that's also going to teach your brain and your muscle to work together by loading the hamstring and the glute as you're doing some single leg RDLs. Next one is you want to strengthen your glute. So there's a couple ways you can go with that. You can do your glute bridge, you can do your hip thrust, you can go double leg, you can go single leg. We have plenty of videos on this one, and you guys can check that out too in another YouTube videos. Now, last thing, third thing that you can do to help prevent this ACL tear would be your balancing, right? So, because most of the time, we're always running on one leg, we're landing on one leg. So you want to make sure you're actually really good at balancing, right? So balancing is simple. You can just stand on one leg. I always think about when I'm standing on one leg, I'm really engaging my glutes here and my core. You can stand here for 30 seconds or a minute, or to challenge yourself, you can do it with your eyes closed, right? For a certain amount of time, or you can even stand here, rotate your head side to side. Some advanced one you can stand on one leg, do some ball drill. If you play soccer, you can kick and pass. If you're a basketball player, you can catch the basketball, or if you're a football player, you can just catch the football, right? And you're gonna do this on both sides. Typically, you have one dominant leg. So if you're a righty, you're gonna be left leg dominant. If you're a lefty, you're gonna be right leg dominant. So you wanna train the non-dominant side. So if I'm a righty, I wanna make sure I train my right leg. If I'm a lefty, right, I wanna make sure I train my left leg. So I'm gonna go my single leg stance, engage my glute, engage my core, do it with my eyes closed. You see how hard that is for my left side? And then from there, you can also talk about rotating your head side to side, catching the ball. So these are something that's extremely, extremely important. Another thing you cannot overlook is making sure that you're hydrated, you're sleeping really well, and your ankle mobility is really good, because if the ankle cannot move well, everything's travel up to the knee, right? So if you have really good ankle mobility, you can also avoid getting ACL injuries. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Again, these are just something that you can do right now at this moment to ensure that you don't have an ACL injury. So that way you have a long season, you have a fulfilling season, and you get to pursue your dream. If you're new to this channel, please subscribe, like, and share this video to anyone that you know that could use this. And like I mentioned before, we have a single leg strengthening video that you can check up here. And then you have another hamstring or glute strengthening video up here that you can check that out. And I'll see you next time.